Well, thank you all for being here. Really appreciate you coming. I think it's important for our students and anyone that may be watching to see what the alumni have been up to. The first thing we'd like to do, and because we're NSA, we're going to start with the ladies, is introduce yourselves and just say your name, the class you were a part of, the year you graduated, right? And then something about your family and the work you're doing. You know, married, how many kids, that kind of thing. We'll start with Carolyn.
Did I just push it? Yes? Okay.
I don't know. I think it's on.
Come on. Okay. So, Catherine, thanks. My sister handed that to me first. But I am the firstborn, so I'll take it. So I'm one of the Ancient of Days graduates from here. I graduated in 2001. And can you count back that far? Were you born? No, I'm very pleased to have done so. It was an exciting time, and I enjoyed being at NSA back when it was in Dr. Schleck's house, and we'd walk there. So it's grown immensely, and it's really exciting to see. I went right from there to teaching into classical education, and I got married in 2010 to a Brit. So we tootled over to England for 6 years and lived in Bristol, which was, I confess, I didn't see nearly enough, and it was delightful to do what we could to tool around. We have 3 children who are all dual citizens, so it's like playing poker at the airport. Like, which passport would you like? We have red and blue ones, so take your pick. And then we moved back here in 2016, and my husband teaches at Logos School, and I teach at Veritas Online.
And who is your husband?
Mark Wilson.
Thank you.
We're not related. We're not a branch. No, and I say that, I love the Wilsons here, but everyone always asks. So no, we're Irish.
And as she said, I am her baby sister. And I graduated in 2009. I'm married to my husband who graduated in 2007 from NSA as well, Mike Church, and I'm Catherine Church. We've got 4 kiddos, and I got married during NSA. And Asa was actually born my senior year, went to college graduation with me. And then we have 4 kiddos, all at Logos. My husband and I own a real estate company here in town, and have been here ever since we graduated. We love it.
What's the name of it?
Kestrel Realty Group.
There you go.
Yes.
Very good. And so we'll just go back to left to right.
So I'm James. I think I graduated 2017, and I think that's right.
Graduated?
I think I graduated. I still don't know. I work at Canon Press. I'm the creative director there, and I have a wife and 2 kids, one on the way. And what else was it?
Well, what's your wife's name? You know,
My wife's name is Lizzie, and 2 wonderful boys.
And you're in Ingebretson.
And I'm in Ingebretson.
There you go. That's good.
I'm Daniel Fukushan. I graduated in technically 2010 on paper, but my class was 2009. I was a super senior. It's okay to be a super senior. I'm the CEO of Roman Roads Press, a curriculum company, and Capital Education, which is an online platform for teachers. Live here in Moscow, married to Lydia. She did graduate in 2009, and we have 6 children, one just 3 months old, and the oldest is 12. So let's see, what was the other thing?
You're
Did I
just
cover
busy,
all?
man. That's it. Jess.
So my name is Jess Monette. I'm an attorney in Wenatchee, Washington. I graduated from NSA in 2006. My wife, Natalie, is among the Ancient of Days as well. She graduated with Carolyn in 2001. Natalie, you might see her name around. She was the original Latin teacher at New St. Andrews College, and I married her and took her away. I got my law degree, so I graduated from NSA in 2006, got my law degree from Regent University in 2009, got an LLM from the University of Washington in 2010, and I practice in Wenatchee as an attorney. I've got 4 kids, and our family helped, with a couple other families, helped set up a co-op, homeschool co-op, which is going really well, and I'm an elder at King's Cross Church, which is CREC Church. Glad to see all y'all. And if you were not one of the ones that was honored today with the Dean's List, rest assured someday you could be an alumni attorney on a panel.
Just to be sure, that applause was for Jess and not you, Brian.
Well, see, I wasn't sure why I was invited in my Canon Press capacity as an editor or as a faculty member.
You can pick. You can do both.
Both? Okay, nice. Well, the good news,
Dropped them both.
what is it? Luke says that a student will be like his teacher, so they can't get away from being like me, whatever they do, I guess. Anyways, yeah, Brian Cole graduated 2011, married Christy, then Becker, 2010 alumna. And I'm, like I said, editorial director. We've got 5 boys. I think that's it.
Which means there's nothing not broken in your home.
Many fights.
Yes.
My name's Chris Miller. I am the older brother of Nathan and Louisa Miller, somewhere out there. I was part of both the class of 2013 and 14, and I'll leave you to wonder why. So upon graduation, I wanted to go into medicine, so I got a second bachelor's at the University of Idaho in microbiology, and then went into the University of Washington School of Medicine. I'm currently in my 4th year, so I'm technically almost a doctor, and I will begin residency training in general surgery sometime this June. I got married upon graduating NSA to Lizzie, then Jeshki, and we have 3 boys.
Very good. Thank you. And I should give thanks to Elise Hatcher Warner. She is the one who organized this and has been directing the Alumni Association for the past, I don't know how many years, but she is coming to an end with that term at the end of this school year, and she's done really good work, so thank you, Elise. The first question is, what was most difficult during your transition from New St. Andrews to your current vocation? And were there any intermediary steps? And I was going to go first to Chris and then to James.
There's 2 things. One is just that it's not completely practical to go into medicine from NSA, but you can get there. I think people, especially young people, they want to get married, they want to start their life and get things rolling, but you can get married, you can have kids, you can have a normal life while finishing up your professional training. You become an adult and you can do that, which is what I did. And then I think the second element is that you move from being in an environment where everybody is essentially on your side in NSA as a Christian, and now all of a sudden you're at some other secular institution studying medicine where they're no longer on your side. But NSA was a huge boon in that respect, and I assume we'll talk about that at some point tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. We can come back to that too. So, James?
Yeah, for me, the transition was a little weird. I remember, especially because I was working all the way through, working at Canon all the way through my NSA time. And I remember I had to drop the marine biology course so that I could go scuba diving with Gordon in Hawaii.
Yeah.
So it was kind of there were times writing papers on planes and all this kind of conflict, and I think I was in the dean's office asking for time off quite a bit. So that transition was tough. But what NSA taught me was it gave me the rigor that I needed to handle both those things, and then the transition was actually pretty easy because I had been doing it and felt like a breath of fresh air to where I had gained the skills I needed to then go apply where I knew I wanted them. And I know some of you guys know where you want to go, some of you don't, but NSA is the place for the rigor, and so lean into that and let it shape you.
Absolutely, great. I'll come back to you for just real quick, Chris. I know when you said you went to an institution after NSA where people weren't for you, I don't know the full story, but I know that you probably had instances where you had to stand on principle, and that may have been difficult. Is that anything you'd like to share with how you were able to do that, how it prepared you for it?
University of Idaho is a little bit because you're in large classes, it's a little bit too faceless for it to come up. It has come up sometimes in medical school, And that's just as simple as, the teacher says something and sometimes you decide to stick your oar in the water and try to push things in the opposite direction. So yeah, things like that have come up and it's been helpful.
Okay. And just for the rest of the panel, anything you'd like to add on that question? I mean, I do think part of, we say this a lot at NSA, is most students have to work while you're in school. So that helps or should help with that transition. Anything else on that theme, esteemed panelist?
I would just add that I think there's benefit to working during school because it actually, I didn't have that hard a time because I didn't have that school life mentality, and that I think can be a little insular. I think it's a benefit to load yourself down with work while you're carrying a full load at NSA. I think that will make the transition easier.
Okay. Was there anybody that you just knew what you were going to do from the time you arrived at NSA before you graduated, or you've seen those things change, right? Or there may be students out there saying, I don't know what I want to do. I should know. Anything? Y'all all knew exactly what you were going to do?
I can answer this one. I definitely did not.
Okay.
I remember Dr. Wilson telling me I left NSA early and then ended up coming back. But he told me I feel like if I do my job well, people leave because they want to go off and do something else and study the sciences. And so no, sometimes you don't know. And one of the great benefits of going to NSA was that I got a broad education that actually introduced me to the sciences and got me into that. That wouldn't have happened unless I had come here.
So my dad was an attorney growing up, and so up until the day I decided I was going to go to law school, if you ask me what's the one job you'll never do, it was to become an attorney, because my dad was an attorney. And I fell for a girl, and all of a sudden realized that I had to support her. and as it turns out, the family business is a great way to do that. And so I went to law school, and it's been awesome. Never looked back.
Good.
Well, when I jumped into NSA, my initial plan was to go do culinary school. And I'd called down to Le Cordon Bleu in California, so that had been a plan. And my plan got interrupted, and I got married after my sophomore year, which I was happy to have that interrupted. And so in terms of a transition to, hearkening back to your last question, I jumped straight from studying all the philosophers and big, huge books, and I had a baby. And I was at home all of a sudden, and I had been working at the church office, and I'd been at NSA. So it was kind of like, all of a sudden, here we are. And so it was a different transition that way, and a different kind of rigor needed for sleepless nights and learning a whole new series of life, being stay-at-home mom, which was wonderful, wonderful. But just in terms of differences of what changes.
So you hit a field with that one. We all have thoughts. I also was never going to be a teacher. So step one is never say never. God has a sense of humor. So I was going to be a teacher. And I was not going to go to NSA because I was only 4 years old, for crying out loud. What kind of a college is that? And then I was going to NSA because obviously I'm going to be a teacher. So that's what I'm going to do. And it was wonderful because God was just so very clear, and that's what I needed to do. And it was the right choice, and he confirmed that all the time. And so, yeah, I'm one of the ones who walked in, this is what I'm doing. Here's what I'm here for. I have a direction, and I had a job right out of college because we all know how classical Christian schools are like, I need a Latin teacher. Okay, I don't want to teach Latin, though, but you have to, and you can teach literature. Fine. Done. Which was great, and I moved to Seattle and met lots of lovely folks there. But I was one of the ones, I was married at 31, and so I had quite a bit of time to use this education and talk to loads of teachers and students of mine who became teachers, and so I got to see another end of it, which was such a delight on that front, to see NSA grow, to talk to my own students about, do you want to go to NSA? Let's chat about that. And I really appreciated that time and God's work in honing me for eventually England and then coming back here, and transitioning to being a mom as well. So that would be my side of that story.
Okay. The next question deals more with the mission of NSA, to graduate leaders that shape culture, living faithfully under the Lordship of Jesus Christ. So how do you see your current work aligning with that mission? How do you see yourself actually fulfilling the mission? I guess in other words, was New St. Andrews successful? And this is for, I forgot that I had people as Catherine. That's right.
Are you sure you
And
want
then,
me to go
yeah,
again?
Yeah, you again, and then
Okay.
Brian, because he hasn't said anything.
Okay. Is it still? No. So now I work at Kestrel Realty Group alongside Mike, and I have been involved with that since it started. He's been a realtor for years, and then he went out on his own for the brokerage in 2017. And so I jumped in with him. And I should add backstory. I've been doing flowers since college, and so I'd been working as a florist out of my home, running a small business that way. Anyway, so I jumped in with him, working behind the scenes, doing marketing, and now I'm also a realtor alongside him to help him out. So in terms of our mission of accomplishing, how do we influence culture? You know, we're on a small scale, every single person you have an interaction with, you have the opportunity to make an impression, because it's easy to think, well, okay, big group, but it starts usually with the one-on-one, and that starts for us, or for me specifically, with my kids. And so NSA was that ability to practice disputatio speeches, or not declamation, I'm sorry. Declamations, you know, or writing papers. And it's like, well, are you actually going to be using that? Are you actually going to be doing speeches? And let me tell you, when you have your little kid right there, all of a sudden you need to have a speech, and you better have good ethos, and you better have good pathos, and you also should say it in 5 words instead of 50. Because their focus is only going to be there. So you better make those words mean something. And those are the little people that matter the most, because they're going to grow up and, Lord willing, shape culture. And so our sons and our daughters. So I feel like NSA definitely provided that background so that we could push on that. And then now showing hospitality to the people moving to town, getting to be an ambassador for Moscow, getting to support NSA and sponsor things like the Hale Institute, and amazing people that are doing so much here, putting money behind them so that they can do those kinds of things. That's our goal.
Excellent. And you're also providing homes, helping people get
Lord
into
willing.
homes, to repeat that.
Lord
Yeah.
willing, we're getting homes.
Yeah. Yes, please. Brian, yes, you.
Great. So, yeah, I've spoken to my students about how rhetoric is leadership, and how being able to speak and what you all are learning is the ability to go show others what they should want as well. It's sort of shaping desire. And I haven't seen that happen anywhere as clearly, well, here at NSA, and then also at Canon Press, where we've been producing materials that are just a blessing to people all over the country and the world, in a way that provides leadership and hope in a time when things that seem strong have all been shaken. And so as far as the ability to be someone who thinks for yourself and can evaluate truth and come to an opinion and express it in a way that is winsome and complete, that's a skill that I see on display from you all, and I'm excited to see you all go do that elsewhere. In grad school, I kept being shocked at the inability of, this was in grad school at NSA, at the inability of adults to express opinions, to think through contrasting opinions, and to have any sort of informed life choices. And that's what you all are getting.
Yeah. Good. Anybody else on this question? I mean, what is shaping culture anyway? But any other thoughts on that?
I want to add something to what Brian just said in terms of the way people outside of NSA are not able to articulate things. I was actually talking to another NSA alumni who is a graphic designer here in town, and we were talking about how NSA prepared him or not for his graphic design in a particular way. And at first he was saying, well, not in a direct, practical way. You know, it's not like studying Thucydides was helping me with InDesign. You know, that was kind of the way he was talking. I was like, now hold on. We're in the middle of 2020, and you and I are both working, and most of the world isn't. NSA gives you the tools to know when you should shut down and hole up, or get to work and show up to work. In other words, there's there's a foundational elements that NSA gives the ability to think, and it's not that a lot of people know this at a gut level, like all the truckers in Canada right now. They didn't have an NSA education, but they know that they've had enough. But what a new Saint Andrews education gives is the ability to think through the first principles of why this is the case and have leadership there, because people like those truckers who know instinctively that they need to get back to work and they need to keep open up the economy. They need people to be able to lead them and articulate why this is the case. So there's NSA is giving a foundation that may not help you in the day-to-day tasks, but that was never the point of education in the first place. And so, and a lot of schools call education learning how to do something practical. That's not what education is. Yeah. That's a little bit of a tangent, but.
No, that's excellent. The next question is, do you view your work as a calling? The work that you're involved in, do you view that as a calling? Let's go with James.
Yeah, you would say a calling is just something that God is putting directly in your life and asking you to do. Yeah, I would say that. I would say everything in your life is a calling. In a certain sense, God is putting something right in front of you today to do. And how do you do that? How do you do that faithfully? How do you do that with love for that thing and appreciation for what God's putting in your life? So, yeah, I mean, even flipping burgers is a calling. You're called to do it to God's glory, and figure out the next step if there is one, and keep after it. So I would say, especially that is something important about what I do at Canon is I feel it's very important and I'm called to it, and because the work that Canon's doing in terms of culture shaping and helping people live their theology through their fingertips, I feel is very important, but it doesn't have to have a Christian tag on it for it to be a very important calling and something that you should be doing to the glory of God.
Yeah. I think one of the things that for you and Brian that Canon has done, I was talking to Brian about it, I did just read a plug for two other alums, Sinking City and Hush Hush, two alums that wrote junior novels, and everything about it, from the story, the editing, to me, not like I'm a real critic or anything, but the production, the art, you're putting something true and beautiful and good, and that compared to what the industry's putting out, there's a stark difference. Right? So kudos on that. Anyone else on the calling question?
It's already on. I don't have to push the button. Okay, so you can learn how to use tech. That's also good. Liberal arts can do that too. I know you guys have inspired me to think about that, and I also teach rhetoric, but to high school. And one of the things that I like to talk about with my students who are all over the country, so they're not all from this, they're not all from a very robust background always, and so helping them, I need to be winsome myself in reining in perhaps some of my stronger opinions as the rhetoric teacher, but encouraging them to think about it and presenting it to them. And some of the things that we talk about, though, especially in the midst of everything that we're living with, is the fact that a liberal arts education like this and thinking Christianly helps if you want to work with your hands. And I think you should work with your hands. I would maybe sidetrack on this one a little bit. The liberal arts education like this is very important. But one of the things that can happen is we get a little too intellectual. And it's happened in the past, said the history teacher passionately. We get too stuck in that. And so we talk about working physically in college, but also working with your hands, doing something, whether that's baking bread and getting messy for hospitality, or learning how to change the engine in your car. There's so many things, and I see that amongst you already, which is very exciting. Some people take their engines out of their car, Derek.
You just
It happens.
I'm just good.
Change that out.
They have to lift that thing.
Just gotta change the engine.
I'm trying to use analogies, guys, come on. Anyway, no, but I do mean that, and I think that goes all the way back to when we're supposed to be a city on a hill, the Puritan understanding of it's not just the holy people and the intellectual people and then all you grunge types down there who change the garbage. It's everybody who is living and glorifying God with their calling. And so I would encourage us to think about that in that sense of we are here to further our intellect and to think about that, but also I would encourage you work with your hands. And if you decide in the midst of your liberal arts education that you're going to be a mechanic, God bless you. We need the mechanics that can quote C.S. Lewis and apply him rightly to the people they're working for, and fix us all for the apocalypse that's coming, that sort of stuff. So I can't say that strongly enough, because you don't want to start making those dichotomies of, well, I'm here for my lofty, thought education. Well, that's true, but God created us to love him with our heart, soul, mind, and strength, all of it. And so just remembering that. That probably went off on a tangent.
A little bit. It's okay. It's good. Yeah, go ahead, Chris, because I was going to
Yeah.
say, how do law and medicine, work in that way?
Sorry, Jess. I'm just going to talk.
Yeah.
So in terms of a calling, definitely it's what James is talking about in terms of just you've been placed by God to do something for someone. If someone's doubled up in pain in the ER, right, you're the person who's equipped to take care of them, and you're the hands of God to them, right? Yeah. That's the basic doctrine of vocation. And something else we've touched upon that I just wanted to add was that oftentimes there's a second layer to that calling if you're trying to work as a Christian in a field that's essentially evil, right? Going into medicine, I'm essentially going into an evil empire, frankly, right? I mean, Fauci is science, and that makes me a deviant, right? That's just how that goes. And if you want to be ready to take something like that on, it really helps to be able to think clearly and completely when you're doing that. I was really grateful to even just have a few extra years under my belt when I needed to say things in class, and that I was able to think clearly. To paraphrase something somebody else said once, we don't need more Christian doctors, we need openly Christian doctors. People who are actually making a difference as a Christian, actually speaking and acting like one in public. And so NSA really helps prepare you for that sort of thing, which is a big deal in whatever kind of profession you go into.
Yes to all. Yeah, I agree with everything that's been said on this. So in my practice, I'm an attorney. I work in a small town, and, well, bigger than Moscow, so it's not a really small town. But my practice deals with elder law, probates, and trusts, which a lot of people, and definitely when I went into it, I thought that sounded pretty tame, pretty lame, pretty not cutting edge law. But what it means is I get to help families as the older members of those families start to lose it, start to get dementia, start to fail, right? So everybody in life starts very weak, and we get strong, and then we end our lives in a state of significant weakness. And that's what I spend my time doing, is helping families navigate that and giving them the tools to be successful in it and protect the assets of their family. And again, it's the kind of thing where, to echo what's been said, there's a huge need in front of me, and God has given me, by His grace, has given me the tools to accomplish it. And so I just jump in, and I do it, and I love it, and the Lord has blessed that richly. If I could put in a plug, one of the reasons why I ducked out of work early today and came down was to put in a plug for all of you young men who are out there trying to decide what you want to do, where you want to go. If I could encourage you to look beyond Moscow, I would do so. There are tons of CREC churches, tons of CREC, close to the CREC churches in towns that desperately need men and women who are going to raise families, start schools, work in places where things are a lot more difficult than they are here. So if you're the kind of guy that would accept a challenge, I would challenge you to broaden your horizons, to ask the Lord, what can I do for your kingdom? And if that happens to be somewhere outside of the Palouse, I think you'll have a lot of work to do, and it's going to be a struggle. It's going to be tough, but it's going to be awesome. I know for me, we've got, at our church, we got a thriving CREC church. I know there's a couple of families in our church that basically the reason they came was because my wife and I invited them over after church for lunch. And that was the different thing that they experienced at our church. And now they're members and have been there for years. So it's really the small things, the kind of things you learn at Saint Andrews College that can have a huge impact on the rest of the world.
Excellent. Well,
Now I'll use the word calling. because I think that was in the question, calling.
Yes, it's good. Well, what advice would y'all give? Just real quick, you and Chris, and then anyone else or folks who are interested in your profession, because you had said too, it's a hard road if you come to NSA first, and how would you sell that? Why is that important?
You want me to start?
Go ahead.
Well, if you are interested in going to law school, you cannot get a better education than St. Andrews College. It's actually a really direct route from a liberal arts education to law school. And the things that you learn here, crazy things like logic, how to write concisely, how to speak clearly and think clearly, is exactly what you do in law school, and it's what I do every day as an attorney. And so, the transition question earlier, the transition, what was hard about it? Well, what was hard about it is the LSAT test in law school. But certainly, if that's the kind of thing that you're inclined to go to, it's actually a really easy transition. But I don't think that's the same for the medical doctor on the panel.
The Latin
No.
helps too, right? Res ipse loquitur.
No, Latin doesn't help at all.
His wife wrote a Latin.
Yeah, sorry. My wife did write a Latin book, so I cast shade whenever I get the opportunity.
Sometimes my classmates would turn to me and be like, "You studied Latin, right?" And I'd be like, "No, I was always bad at Latin. You don't even understand." It's true that NSA is not a direct route into medicine. There are ways to make it slightly more direct. I transferred to U of I when there was an articulation agreement, so I didn't have to go through all 4 years, although it doesn't exist anymore. Josiah Warner,
Way to go.
I know, right? Another NSA grad got a master's degree in pre-medical sciences, so there is a way of doing it. But just going back to one of the biggest things that NSA gives you that actually helps you when you're in an unfriendly institution is that it really defangs the grandeur there, right? When you go to something like University of Idaho, they are powerful, they have a ton of money, and you're surrounded by brilliant people who are accomplishing truly incredible work. And I think a lot of Christian, evangelical Christian people can lose their faith in college, and one of the things that contributes to that is just they're dazzled by what they see and the impressiveness of it and the seeming solidity of it. But if you've gone to NSA, you know that academic hegemony is ephemeral, and what the current queen of the academics is ephemeral, right? Once everybody was scholastic, once everybody was followed Plato, now everybody's following materialism. It just kind of pops that balloon of grandeur that you see, and so it's just easier to kind of have a certain kind of appropriate contempt for it. Basically, we're very narrow-minded and provincial in our thinking in academia these days, and if you can see that, it worries you a lot less when someone like that tells you should learn to think for yourself. You're just kind of like, yeah, right, okay. So that's an enormous boon, and I can't tell you how much that ultimately counts for, because it just gives you a lot of courage over the rest of your life.
I guess along with that, how many of you up here are entrepreneurial, and I've noticed one of the things since I've been here these last 18 months and getting to know alums is that it's almost every single one of you have some form of entrepreneurial spirit. So what is it about NSA that helps with that? And I don't have anybody in mind because this is not a question I wrote down. So whoever wants to answer can go ahead.
Well, I can start with an idea. And I think part of it is that NSA teaches you the tools to learn. So if you see something that needs to be done, you can say, well, I can figure out how to do that. And if I don't know, I can find the information. And so if you're willing to research and you're willing to dig, then you can probably find out how to go about doing it. And if you add hard work to that and a mindset that I want to get it done, then you'll be able to accomplish it. And I think you also have to have a desire to look around the world and see that everything here that God put on the world is amazing, which is what NSA does and Dr. Wilson does. Is that, no, you don't realize that speck of dust, is incredibly complex, and you can't poo-poo it. And one of the things that was funny that you might find yourself geeking out about is I never expected to run a property management company, and I found myself doing that over the years. And included in that, some of you guys have helped and cleaned. And all of a sudden, you realize, oh, wow, cleaning is amazing. There is so much that you can learn about cleaning. And then you start getting really excited about it. And you tell people, wow, it's amazing what Tide powder can do. Have you tried it this way? See, there's certain things. Plus, you can flip up the back parts of lots of toilets and pull the whole seat off. But anyways, but my point being that you can do excellent work in whatever God has put into your hands, and you don't know what that will be. And if you have the mindset to accomplish what he's put into your hands, I think that's part of that entrepreneurial level that, hey, yep, let's get it done.
I would say really quick, one thing that, Daniel, you can probably speak to is entrepreneurship is, in a way, it's applied creativity. It's just creativity taken into the world and into providing value for people. That's all it is. In whatever sector, if someone's paying you, they value what you're giving them more than that money. So what NSA teaches in the creative sphere, I think, can easily be just applied to good entrepreneurship in terms of finding, taking those same skills you're learning and finding different ways to state something or argue something in a paper, to then going out in the business world and finding creative ways to, communicate to a market or find a different way to do a product that hasn't been done. That is such a concrete application to the creative skills you're learning.
I just wanted to add to that, into what Catherine, what you were saying was that idea of wonder. When you combine the ability to notice, to wonder, along with the ability to ask the right questions, and to not just say, okay, so this is how it works, and then you ask why it works. People often ask why, but even back up further to the purpose of the thing, the telos. When you're thinking in those terms, you may be taking biology or saying why do men go to war, and you're studying Thucydides and history, but you're practicing to ask questions that apply to all of life. There's a lot of people, when they're asking about the usefulness of a classical education, they're looking for that practical aspect, but it's and they run into what I've called, when we internally recently, the amen wall. It's like, you've heard this 100 times, amen, No, it's think Ron Swanson. No, I want you to cook all the bacon. No, I don't think you understood me, all of it. That's kind of how I want you to hear this. No, when you're taught the skills of how to ask why and the purpose of a thing, you actually are equipped to create, because you're looking at the world differently. And so it can apply to every area of life, whether it's parenting or starting a new business. You're coming at it from a perspective, and you have been practicing something very practical, and you're practicing it in old subjects, history, theology, Plato, Aristotle, but it does apply over to just about every area of life. So I think that's why you have a lot of entrepreneurs, is that they go into an area and you say, well, why do we do it that way? Well, it's because it's what's been done. Or there's these gatekeepers. Well, do we have to listen to them? Yeah. Yes. No, I don't think so. And more often than not, there is the way things are done, or there are either false gatekeepers, or things are done the way they've been done, simply because evil people 100 years ago decided that was the way to do it. So ignore them.
Is it working? Okay.
For the third or fourth time, yes. You don't have to push a button.
I'm a liberal arts teacher. I don't do tech. No, I do now, though. I have to, because it's online. So anyway, I was going to add to that, though. NSA articulates so well, and always has from the get-go, vision. And the vision is truth, goodness, and beauty, and go out and make it. Do it. And again, that's one of those amen ones, isn't it? You're like, I heard that again. It's like, yes, but here I am on the older side of things, living it, and every year go, man, that's so true. More true this year than it was last year. And I'm applying it, and also, why am I applying it? Because my Creator created me. So there's a drive in us, and I think the thing is, though, that so much of humanity wastes that. and of course creates perverse things. And so you are here learning how to create something true and good and beautiful. In my case, I like doing cake. It's pretty fun, and it tastes good, and it's beautiful for a short time. And that sort of thing. And same thing with food. You probably, many of you know I work with Mrs. Merkel and getting to do these wonderful dinners or alongside Francis and when he does his amazing things. And I learned so much about beauty through food, the color and the smell and the taste. And I'm being very, philosophical about it sometimes, right? But I mean, it's also practical. And so not losing sight of that. That's my everyday as a wife and a mother, is cooking. And it's not always, gloriously beautiful, though there's something to be said for Velveeta mac and cheese and its golden glory. You know this. But there's also something to be said for the, cordon bleu. And so just remember, I seriously, every day, my liberal arts education comes to play at my table. And it comes to play in the way that I put flowers in the house or that I'm keeping it clean. Like, thanks for the details on that. But it's true, and I love that we can think about that when cleaning a toilet, that God gave me this to do. It's white now, which is good, and it smells nice. It's not cake, but,
No.
but I mean, I appreciate that. And there's those of you out there who have those interests, and again, I love seeing that in the student body already. So I would say this is because it's getting clearer and clearer that NSA is pushing creation as it ought to be. So you're taking dominion. Go get them.
So we have two more questions, and we may only get to one, but everybody has to answer this one. And we're going to start with Brian. All right? So the question, because we want to get to Q&A, and time's running short. This next one is, what are you most grateful for from your time at New St. Andrews? So I'll give you little time to think. Everybody else could be thinking while you answer.
I don't need it. We're ready to go.
All right, let's go. I love it.
I'm most grateful that NSA really does teach you the Lordship of Jesus Christ and the effect of the gospel from the intellect all the way down. And I love it when my wife and I are coaching kids and the philosophy or the history comes out to the front of it. Those are tiny side issues. The big central stuff, as you watch how your mind is solidified through your education, that's a formative time, that 18 to 22. And I'm thankful that the NSA education did what they promised. So that's the answer.
We'll go to your left.
Yeah, I definitely have one, and it's basically my peers. NSA, the difference between like going to U of I versus NSA is the difference between your peers pulling you up or dragging you down. Two stories. When I came, after even only my first 2 terms at NSA, I came back, and my dad was like, "You seem less arrogant." And I was like, yeah. I found out I was a small fish. What is it, a big fish in a small pond? And then I had a similar experience where Dr. Mack later, a year or two later, was like, when I first met you, I thought you were kind of arrogant, but I guess I was wrong. And I was like, no, you were right. And it's just an enormous blessing to be surrounded by people who are pulling you upwards. It's just a gigantic bonus in addition to everything else we're being given.
Jess?
I am most thankful for my wife. And I seriously mean that in the sense, obviously, for all of the obvious reasons, but beyond that, it is truly a blessing to have a spouse that is that's on the same wavelength as you are as far as the way the world works. And one of the awesome things about NSA is it teaches you to think, teaches you to reason, teaches you to love learning. And I'm really, really super blessed by having a spouse that's into all of those things, and being able to raise our kids to do the same thing together. So.
Just keep going down.
Just keep on going. I have to say, I'm also thankful for your wife. She taught me in high school and in college here at NSA. But so much of what they've all said is also true. But I do think the centrality of Christ is a huge part. And then now the Bible Reading Challenge is post-NSA. It's not related necessarily to that, but in terms of the focus on the Word, because we want to be shaped by the Word so that we can go out and shape culture. And so I think the focus on the Bible at NSA and the importance of reading your Bible. So we're shaped by so many words at NSA, but the ultimate word being the overarching shape.
This is probably going to sound repetitive. I hope it does, actually. I think we all have a lot of similar things. But yeah, the conversations founded in Christ with my peers and with my teachers. I was blessed to go K-12 with a good classical school, and so I was very blessed by that. But yeah, college is such a, not necessarily a capstone, because you should go out and keep learning, but I was very pushed and challenged in ways I hadn't been before, but within this context that I trusted implicitly, and I was grateful for that. I knew I was not being manipulated by my teachers, and I could trust them to always keep my nose right in the Word as well, and apply it to all things, since Christ is Lord of everything from jellyfish to Aristotle. So that was pounded home, and it has affected my entire life ever since.
So I would also say, to what Jess said, that being married to an alumni is a wonderful thing. So it's a good place to find a spouse, because you have so many things in common throughout life, which really makes a difference. But what I would like to say is the alumni network. And I mean that both in terms of the actual alumni who have graduated, but also in the sense of the mission of New St. Andrews, which is the alumni network of all of the great authors and the people we study all throughout the centuries, what the New St. Andrews education gives you is an introduction. They are in your alumni network, you might say. And I was thinking about that recently when I reread The Consolation of Philosophy by Boethius 10 years after I supposedly read it at New St. Andrews. And I've got I was able to pick it up and read it, and because I had the context, but I was thinking, I don't remember this. Look, there's my notes. I definitely read this. It's got my name on it and margin notes, but it was such a blessing to reread it and learn again from it. And so, Lewis talks about how so often when we're reading, when we talk about reading the ancients, we read twice as many more difficult words about the great authors instead of the great authors themselves. So what I think the New St. Andrews education gives is that alumni network that I'm calling it, is a sense that we have an introduction to this vast network of what was the NSA ad? Most of our teachers are dead, but most of our alumni are dead. But we've had an introduction to them. We don't know them, we have their calling cards. Some of them are on the quick list, and so that's a truly valuable thing that will stay with you your whole life.
I'd say for me, this maybe says more about me, but the rigor was the thing that I am most grateful for. I was given the ability to bleed for something and to see it through, and to start something with no option of failure. There's no exit. This is through. We're going to see this through. So, and even, I know some of you freshmen are thinking, this has been really hard and it's only going to get harder. And I'm here to say that's all the way correct. And because you're going to look back at freshman year and even freshman through senior year, later in your life, you're going to look back and realize that was kiddie stuff compared to the rigors you're going to have to face in the world. So I'm grateful for what I was given there in terms of rigor, but it only prepared me for what's to come. So
Excellent. Okay, with that, if you're considering NSA, whoever may be watching this, I think that's the best recruiting pitch we could give. So just come. And we can do Q&A now on how you want to execute that. I execute it.
That's how he
If
wants
you have
to
a question, there's a hand, I see a hand. You can stand and ask it. Be loud. It's a good advice, Brian. The question was, how did NSA affect your relationship with God? And we'll start with, let's see. Whoever wants to start, you can answer it.
in freshman year, Nicaea term, I wrote a paper for Mr. Merkel, before he was doctor, that on Calvin's Institutes and the role of the conscience, and I think I named it anti-forgive-omaticism. Can't believe that. But it was against the doctrine of penance, and it was one of those things that one of the few moments where a very specific instance of time, I worked through something really difficult in my spiritual life, which was I had what I thought was an oversensitive conscience, but it was really more of an over-scrupulous God in a box type of vending machine view of God that I needed to work through, that Calvin helped me do as we studied through it. And I don't think I could have been the ambitious student to say, oh, I'm going to read Calvin on my own. It was through working through it, writing a paper, knowing that there was a grade, is what was the context that made me work through issues that ended up being very personal and very much affecting me. And I walked out of that term having been truly freed from something because I worked through something in a systematic way. And that was a tool to work through something that I learned from that moment on as well. You know, when you're bound up by something, whether it's a theological error or something that a wrong assumption, there are ways to do it. And so it was an early on thing that really did change me in my life in a spiritual way, and I'm really, really grateful for.
Yeah. Recently, we've had a couple high-profile Christian cases of people apostatizing, especially in the entertainment industry. And one thing we joke about in the home is they always apostatize. They say, I just don't think anyone has ever asked this question before. Why is there evil in the world? and one of my favorite things is just NSA showing over the past 4,000 years exactly how many times that question has been asked and answered. So as good doctrine and good living, that shapes us all.
And I would just add, I came to NSA thinking I was pretty hot stuff. Just be really honest. I was like, I went to Logos. Bring it on, you know. I got this. I've done the classical thing. It's there. Nope. And I'm grateful for that. I literally got, well, not literally, but it felt literally like I got hit in the head with a 2x4. It's like this, whoo. And I was proud, and I was thinking I needed to have this level of grades, and that's how I achieve everything, and I'm competitive out the wazoo. That hasn't changed too much, but I learned how to use it, and to use it humbly, and I was very grateful for that realization in my freshman year and not later, where it could, you know, I really do. I had good teachers and peers, and it was a good point in my time to go, I am not the hottest thing in the room. There are times to sit down and shut up and let the other person talk, or solicit their advice, or acknowledge that my friend is so much smarter than me, Natalie. She was just irritating. No, totally kidding, but she's the girl who did her full degree at NSA while doing one at U of I as well. At the same time, 5 languages, yeah. I'm like, great. And you know what was so freeing about that? That was like, that's Natalie, and that's that level. I don't have to be that level.
I don't either.
I know, right? And that was very freeing. I mean it, guys. I'm going to work my hardest. I'm going to glorify God to the best of my ability, and it doesn't look like hers because she's been given different abilities. And that was a freeing moment. It was a humbling moment, and I'm so grateful for it. So that was a big one for me.
Any other questions? Right there. Yeah, stand up. And I can't see that far, so say your name.
Ethan Bernard. What is a particular memory or commonplace that you have from a professor who either is or is no longer teaching?
Okay, so I'm repeating the question. What is a particular memory or commonplace that you have from a favorite memory from a particular professor that's either or humorous. Humorous would be preferred. Of current faculty would be preferred, or someone that may not be currently on the faculty.
I got a good one with Mr. Griffith, of course. Not being great at Latin and related to what Carolyn was talking about. I struggled with Latin, especially near my freshman year. And as many of you know, Griffith has a weird finger on the pulse of who you are as a person. Somehow he's able to see your soul. So I went to his office hours and I was like, Mr. Griffith, I'm just struggling with Latin. I think I'm just lazy or something. Like I'm just not putting enough work. And he goes, No, Chris. Your problem is you don't like it when you're not the best at something, so you just have a terrible case of sour grapes. And nothing else needs to be said.
Well, I have one for Dr. Schwant, but he's not here anymore. So, sorry.
Still share it.
I know. Well, so you might appreciate if you're Bernard. So is Kirby your sister-in-law? Okay, so she was in my class with me in Greek, and I mentioned my oldest son was born my senior year. And Dr. Schwant, Mr. Schwant, he had been helping me with my thesis too, so I'd seen him a lot. And we're in Greek class, take a quiz, and I'd started writing in English and finished in Greek. So he was gonna take the point off, and Kirby was going to bat for me. And she's like, come on, Mr. Schwant, she's pregnant. And he's like, you're pregnant? And I was like 5 months along at this point, and we'd been seeing him.
Dr. Merkel, his Hebrew class, I remember at the beginning of Hebrew class, he said, Hebrew class is where people get together. And Christy and I were both in class together, and we'd been in separate classes and had to work really hard. So we had to pretend like that wasn't happening. But he says he knew it.
I got to have Dr. Schlecht all the way from before he was married to Brenda from 7th grade. I had him all the way through college, so I could tell many stories. But one of my favorites was Thucydides' recitation, history. And the man is incredible with how many things he does with no sleep whatsoever. I don't even know. But he would snatch sleep sometimes in recitations in the back. And yet he still knew exactly where we are, so never underestimate it. But I was giving one on some battle, because that's what you do, and I had a map and everything, and a pointer. So I was very professional. But I noticed that he was falling asleep, and so I would whack. And then they moved here, and he'd kind of take notes. It was very mean. I was terrible for doing that, but it was too much fun, and he did give me a good grade. So, but he knew where it was, because he would wake up and immediately ask the question about that particular location. He's incredible.
So Carolyn did it wrong.
Oh.
When Dr. Schlecht falls asleep and you're giving a presentation, you keep a monotone and just ride that out. That's what you do. You don't want to wake that up. Just play it off. So my class at NSA was kind of we like to think of it as kind of a hinge point for NSA, because it was the first class of overwhelmingly men, and we showed up. Yeah, boys, men, whatever. And when we showed up, we were, the classes ahead of us, particularly the juniors when we were freshmen, it was a brilliant class, really, really top-notch. They were all really smart. They all studied really hard. And our class rolled into town pretty ambivalent. And so we got through freshman year, barely, and that was Mr. Apple's first year, his sophomore year. No, sorry, junior year was his first year. And so we do our first test, or our first paper, and we turn in the paper, and then comes the next class period, and he comes, and he's like, well, I've given you all A's. And we were like, yeah. And he's like, no, it's A for abominatio. And he failed us all, I think. And then explained to us how you actually do write a paper, and that commenced a brutal couple of terms of remedial paper writing for my class. That's what I got.
If any of you guys have funny stories of Brian or Mr. Cole, please feel free to pass them on. I think the office would love to hear some of those.
Any other questions? Yes.
So students often have a hard time idolizing grades. This has kind of been touched on already. But how exactly, or what advice would you give for us in regards to relating our grades right now to our future fruitfulness?
No relation.
So the question, because I have to repeat it, is student. I think our current culture in education idolizes grades a lot. And so how do you make the relationship between your current grades, be they not of the A variety, more of the, I don't know what the Latin word was, abominatio? Yeah, of that variety. Is that really a projection of how you'll do in life?
Short answer is no.
No. Yes.
But actually, there is I was never on the dean's list. There were some classes that I believe before Populi, this was written on little notes. It was something along the lines of a certain marine biology class where Dr. Wilson wrote that my zeal and enthusiasm and photography helped tip the scales in my favor to pass the class. And yet, some of the classes that I didn't get the best grades in were the ones that impacted me the longest until today. And so there's that aspect. I would also say that earlier I said it's great to be working during school. I know that there have been professors who have known that I was working, and there was a passing grade. I was passing the class I was doing it, but it wasn't the straight A. It wasn't the dean list. But I knew I had their respect more because of what I was balancing than if I were idolizing my grades and overemphasizing that. So also there's the statistic that most CEOs are B+ students, which is, I was on a good day.
Yeah. Well, I do.
Yeah, the short answer is it's among the weaker tools to measure education, I would say.
Yeah, that's right. One unnamed classmate that of the classmates that I have in my class, the one that is most impressive to me and is doing the most amazing work for the kingdom is a guy who didn't get great grades, and grades are certainly a good marker and a good reflection of the effort you're putting in, but I would put a lot more stock in the non-grade response you get from your professors. I mean, if you get a B and your professor rolls his eyes because you should be applying yourself a lot more, that's a ton more meaningful than getting a C and your teacher saying, yeah, you did your best and you passed my class barely. Because, yeah, that's so.
Amen.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can share, I don't know if this would be the classmate, but I just had a conversation with another alum, Larson Hicks.
That's him.
So he was sharing that in Josh Apple's class, he had turned in a paper and he had gotten a C, but Josh had told him, I want you to know this is really good work. And Larson had said, I'd get up, I forget what hour in the morning, but something ridiculous. He'd go to work. He was married. His wife was having a child, or they already had children. He'd come to school, leave school, go to work 2 more times, so 2 other jobs, right? And he made his way through. It took him a little bit longer, but yeah, he's wonderful. He's the CEO. Yeah, he's doing wonderful.
That's my teacher memory of John Schwant. I was in Greek with him when he was like in his 6th or 7th year of NSA. And Larson, are you current? No, sir. Oh, Larson. Yeah.
That is, according to Dr. Edwards, that is all the time that we have. I would like y'all to give thanks to the alum that came their time. And that's it.